2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Finish It Day. We don't know what day it is, so we're not going to say. It's just Finish It Day.
But you'll know because that'll be the day that you're seeing this video and getting really excited about finishing your quilt projects. It's still time to get them done before Christmas. Here we go. We have lots of goodies to show you.
I have a feeling lots of people have been finishing a lot of projects in the past few months. So you may have come across some things that you wish you had had in your quilt room, but don't. Or things you didn't even know about that once you find out about, you'll want to.
Yes, for sure. Marking, that's always a fun thing to talk about. It's one of the challenging things when you're making quilts. And there always seems to be somewhere along the way that you have to do some marking, either your quilting lines or stitching lines if you're doing small projects. There's different tools on the market and they all have a use. So we've got a couple of them here on special for our reindeer games. We have the Bowen chalk marker. I've used this many times and I do go back to it over and over. There are several different colors of chalk. Comes with the white. Got refills in gray, yellow, and green, because of course everything needs multicolors. Okay, not all colors work on all fabrics. And then we also have the lovely self-erase marker by Quilters Select. This is fairly new and it's been selling like hotcakes because there's always a demand for great marking tools. This is similar to the purple marker, so the marking erases itself in a few days, 1 to 7 days. So that's always fun. It's one of the ones that you need to, get to work on quickly while the mark is still there, so you don't have to remark it.
Yeah, that's definitely the tool that you want to use when you're ready to sit down and actually quilt that particular section. It all depends on the humidity in the air, how fast it will disappear. And if you want it gone before it wants to be gone by itself, you can always erase it like a blue marker with some cold water as well. After you're done marking, or maybe before you're done marking, you'll want to baste your quilt. So we also have the Quilters curved safety pins on special as well. That's a pack of how many?
300.
300.
You'll use them all. It's not too many. You'll need them.
If you're doing a king size quilt, you might even want two. You don't want to have your pins any further apart kind of than the width of your hand. So you do want to make sure that it is well basted so that you don't get any shifting and therefore puckering while you're quilting.
And eventually you're going to need wonder clips. You may use them throughout your project for keeping track of your piles of blocks or various pieces of your fabric. The opportunities for using these wonder clips are really endless, but they're particularly handy when it comes to putting on that binding. Whether you're sewing by hand or sewing your binding on my machine, they are just the perfect little tool to actually hold that binding on your quilt.
Without getting stuck by pins all the way along the edge. We'll have those in various colors and different size packs. I believe 10, 25, and 50 packs, and all the different colors that are available, as well as red, of course.
Measuring tape. There's
Absolutely.
Always lots of measuring to be done.
When you're putting on those borders,
yes,
you know who you are.
I learned the right way. I learned. This is a great measuring tape because it is 3 meters long. So you can measure the full width and length of the quilt that you're working on. And it has a retractable just little button here, retracts it back in, chains, you can hang it up, and I know many of you use this, and those of you who haven't tried it yet, think about it. It's really worth it. I reach for it over and over again.
Because you know you're tired of sitting there rolling up that fabric measuring tape over and over again.
The one that's stretched from 1 to 2 meters, you
Yeah.
mean? Because it's pulled in
Yeah.
length? Yes.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
one.
not really accurate anymore?
Or the one that you sliced over a couple times with your rotary cutter because it was under your fabric. I don't, you know, a friend, that happened to a friend.
Yeah. Can't beat the big square up ruler from Quilter Select for more measuring. This is precision for sure. And those of you who are familiar with the Quilter Select rulers, you know about the wonderful non-slip backing they have and the lovely lines that are thin enough that you're not mistaking the measurements. You can see them, but they don't get in your way. This is a great size, 18 by 18. And, you know, you really will come to a time when you do need this size. I don't have it yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah. Great for blocking your quilts too, if you're doing that at the end of your quilt, to make sure that it hangs nicely. If it happens to be a wall hanging or something that you want to lay really nice and flat. Great for doing the corners before you put on your binding, just to make sure everything's nice and square. Tons and tons of different uses, and we know that even with just piecing the tops of your quilts, that some blocks in some of these fantastic quilts are getting bigger. So when you started out, you know, 20, 30 years ago with your 12.5 by 12.5 square ruler, which is what I have, you're finding that it's not big enough for some of those newer quilts that you're attempting now. So this covers a lot more than the 12.5 square ruler.
Yes, I learned that when I was doing my first improv quilt, and my improv blocks kept growing and growing, and it's like, oh wow, I really need a bigger block. I had never intended to make a block that big, but that's what happens.
Funny how that happens, huh?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So then you're going to get down to actually quilting your quilt. And my favorite tools are rulers. Ever since I discovered rulers, I've been using them. I can't even think of a quilt that I have done in terms of custom and not maybe pantograph, but even quilting on the domestic machine as well as a long arm, that I did not use a ruler on. Even if it was just something as simple as stitch in the ditch. Use your straight ruler, slim, as opposed to using your walking foot, because then you don't have to turn the quilt. You can go any direction with this. You can go forward, back, sideways, diagonal, whatever way you want, and it just minimizes the wear and tear on your shoulders from turning that quilt every time you change directions when you're stitching in the ditch. Angela Walters has some new rulers out. You may be familiar with these. She came out with them in her, you know, regular sort of long arm high shank version, which work well on many machines, even if your machine is low shank. You just won't necessarily be able to use it behind the foot, which a lot of people don't do, but sometimes you do need to do depending on the shape that you're attempting. So she's come out with the 3 most popular rulers in a low shank version now. And those would be Shelley, Taj, and Squiggy. She has those in a low shank version, which means they're just going to be a little thinner than the regular ones. They are still the same shape, same markings, same anti-slip grip on the bottom, and they will fit behind the foot of your machine. So we have all of those on special as well. Just remember that if you haven't used a ruler foot before, or a ruler in your domestic machine quilting before, that you do need a ruler foot. If you need any help with that, we didn't have those on special for this promotion, but if you do need help with that, we can order them in, and just email and let me know what your machine is, and I can let you know which version you need.
And what better time to be learning some new tricks with your machine quilting have a feeling there's going to be some time this winter when you're going to be at home looking for something new to do, challenging yourself, and these rulers have just what you need to take you that next step in your quilting. I also understand there's some pretty good videos on how to use these rulers.
I was just going to say that Angela Walters has a few quilt-alongs and that sort of thing that really go into maximizing the potential out of these quilting rulers, and she gets you going without any fear of issues. So it is a really good thing to jump into, even if you only get used to your slim for stitch in the ditch. And we also have the Quilter Select long arm ruler. If you do have a long arm or a high shank machine, again, you can use that on a low shank domestic machine as well. You just won't have the ability to fit it behind your foot, which is fine if you find out that, you know, you're only using it on the sides and in the front anyway, which most of the time that's where I'm using my straight ruler. And because this is Quilter Select, it has the anti-slip grip that their regular rulers have on it, and that's actually my favorite straight ruler for quilting on my domestic now, because it doesn't let anything slip underneath that ruler and keeps everything nice and straight.
Grip and stitch?
Just doing free motion quilting, those are going to be your best friend.
You thought gloves were good? Gloves are good. These are great.
Yeah.
So, if you don't have them already, lots of people do, and you'll be able to get lots of good feedback from anybody you ask who's used them. And yeah, highly recommend. One for each hand, and they just really help you hold on and move comfortably.
I sort of equate them to being handles for your quilt. You just kind of lay them down and you put your hands over top of them and you just go. You don't realize how much pressure you're still having to put on the quilt, even with gloves on, until you use these and then go back and you're like, oh man, that really was a lot of work. And this just takes some of the work out of your hands when you're quilting for long periods of time.
Needles. We talked about putting the binding on earlier, but you really probably aren't going to do that till the very end. So you're maybe going to use some of the quilting basting needles by Tulip. These are really nice in terms of their length and easy to thread. Give them a try. I know these are one of your favorites.
Yeah, I found those probably about 5 years ago on a trip down to the U.S. and stopped at one of my favorite quilt shops in Tennessee that is unfortunately no longer there. But they had the Tulip needles, and I'm always looking for a long kind of springy needle because I like my needle to have a little bit of flex. And so she actually let me take them all out of the package and kind of fondle them a little bit. And I came home with the Tulip quilt basting needles, which have been absolutely fantastic. I don't like to use anything else now. I've actually converted quite a few people here at the shop too. And they're just a great needle, super smooth. Again, it's one of those things you don't realize how much resistance or friction you're getting from your needle when you're doing your basting or your applique or your binding, any of that sort of thing, until you use a needle that just glides through almost effortlessly. So those are the Tulip needles. And the one other thing you're going to need to finish it is thread.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we are bringing in a brand new product for us this year. We already carry the 80 weight Quilter Select polyester thread. So we're adding the 60 weight poly cotton to the mix, and that is a cotton wrapped polycore. So it acts and looks like cotton, but has a little bit of extra strength so that you can get away with the finer thread without sacrificing strength. Great for quilting applique, all kinds of different uses where you don't want the thread to be in your face because it is a little bit finer. I can't remember how many colors that comes in.
60 different colors.
60 different colors. It is 60 weight, and we'll have all those colors available on the website.
And it's going to be, check out the price. It's really competitively priced, nicely priced, and good price for buying multiple colors for sure. So a really nice product to try.
And with that, you should have your quilt finished.
All right.
Just like that.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you soon.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.